Hey guys, and welcome to a new episode of Tutorial Grid. I've been getting a lot of questions about how to do certain things in After Effects that are really kind of basic questions. So I decided to do more of like a beginner tutorial. So this is going to be the beginner's tutorial part 1. Alright, so whenever you get into After Effects, this is kind of what it looks like. So you have your screen, you have your palette here, you have a bunch of stuff down here. This is where your composition goes. So like whenever you import footage, you actually import it all into this little section right here. This is where your stuff goes whenever you're looking to edit, as well as you have your effects and presets on the side here, as well as the text area, and you have your tracker here. Now, in order to set up a composition, what you're wanting to do is you're going to want to go into Composition, New Composition. Now, this is the main thing that I'm going to hit on this one. We're just going to do a quick, small little tutorial over it. Basically, in our composition settings, what this does is change what your overall viewport is of your composition is going to be. So, this can be anything you want. But we really try to know exactly what your media is going to be. So say if you're doing it for television, if you're doing it for HD, you're going to want 1920 by 1080. Some TV studios use 720 footage. Some still use standard DV footage. You really need to know exactly what type of settings you're going to need. There are a lot of presets in After Effects. So if you go over to presets, mine says custom right now, but you can hit this little drop down and you have a lot of different presets. Now Ntsc Dv is 720 by 480 pixels. This is standard what's called 4:3 pixels, or in a 4:3 aspect ratio. That means you have a square here. So it's just going to be a small little square. It's basically for older footage, not a whole lot of pixels, 480 lines. There's just not a lot of pixels and data to work with, mostly for older televisions and stuff like that. Then we also have Ntsc Dv Widescreen, which is actually the same pixel ratio, but with a different aspect ratio. So this is going to be more widescreen, what normal pixels look like. So you have 1920 by 1080 or 720 by 480 and so on and so forth. But the 720 by 480 pixels is a square. 720 by 480 widescreen is going to be your standard widescreen definition, and you can see that right here where whenever you change down your drop down, we have D1, DV, Ntsc widescreen 121, and then you also have 091. Now, whenever you're setting up your composition, you're kind of need to know what frame rate your composition or your media is going to be. Most standard media, if you don't change a lot of the settings on your cameras and so on and so forth, is going to be usually about 29.97. That's what's called standard interlaced video footage. Interlaced video footage is actually half by half, which is going to be, say you have a video that's going to be one line per video every other frame. So you have one frame and then a different frame on top, which is going to be one frame, one line, and another frame the next frame, and then they interlace each other to make it look like a true video footage, which is actually halving the ratio of your actual definition of the video, which I usually don't like to use because it makes it look kind of funny. Makes it look not as clean and crisp. Usually what I do is what's called a drop frame, which is 23.976, which is pure frame, what the pure frame ratio would be, 24 frames per second. So 24 frames per second, or 24 FPS, is actually one frame every, it's 24 frames every second. So you have one frame every time, not an interlaced frame where they overlap over each other. And so that's going to be one pure image every 24 frames, which is going to be the highest quality image footage you can get, and that's what you're going to see in standard TV. We also have resolution full. This is kind of more for compiling and compositing footage. Your resolution, you can start at full, but if you know you're going to be doing kind of a crazy composition, you can change it down to half, third, and quarter. But whenever you go to render your footage, you're going to want to put that back on full, or else you're not going to get the actual full image. The nice thing about doing this is whenever you do like a very large composition where you have a lot of effects, a lot of presets, a lot of stuff that actually you're doing in your composition, you can bring it down to a quarter, to where all of that stuff is going to be rendering at less resolution. That way you can see it a lot quicker, which is nice, but it doesn't give you the full resolution, of course. And then we also have our start time code and our duration. Now, start time code is you just keep that at 0. Most of the time, you're not going to really worry about that. There are a couple times when you do want to change this, but about 90% of the time you're never going to change this. The duration is how long your actual time frame is. Usually I keep it at 30 unless I'm doing a longer duration, of course, but usually most shots are going to be that you're going to be using in After Effects are probably only going to be maybe 15 seconds at most. Let's hope you don't go over 15 seconds, because if you want to keep things looking fairly interesting, your shots will probably be just about 10 to 15 seconds long for each shot. Frame rate, you don't have to memorize this number. You actually have a drop-down list of different frame settings. So 8 frames per second is really low. It looks kind of wishy-washy. 23.976 is usually the lowest I go. That is standard drop frame ratio. You also have 24 pure frames, which is also very good. But if you want the true film effect, 23.976 is very good. 29.97 is also very good if you're doing that's the 30 frames per second drop frame ratio, which is also pure frames. But we do not want to go into 59.94, which is interlaced frames, which is half by half, and you're actually only going to be looking at about 24 frames anyway, but halved. So I wouldn't do 59.94. So again, sorry, the first thing I said, 29.97, that's actually 30 frames per second. You don't want to use 59.94. That's the interlace frames. Don't use 59.94. Forget what I said before. 59.94 you do not want to use, because that is interlaced. Unless you are forced to use it, then I'll show you a different tutorial later about that. 60 frames per second is really nice, because 60 frames per second actually pulls down your footage from like slow motion cams, which can be utilized in a lot of different compositions, which are pretty nice. Background color, usually we just keep it at black. It really doesn't matter unless you want to just change the background color. I usually don't recommend it, because background black, it's easier to alpha out. And we'll talk about alpha settings a little later. We also have the advanced tab for advanced 3D plugins and such. These we won't get into because that's a little bit too advanced for this tutorial. So we'll just stick to the basics. So these are the basics of creating your composition. Also, composition name, you want to call that whatever you want to remember your composition as. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. We're going to start at 720 dv, and this is the 4:3 frames. So we're going to go ahead and start out in HD 24, 1920, 1080. Notice how big our composition is. It's very nice, very nice. So that is kind of the basics of setting up your composition. Now, if you have any questions, please leave them below. I'm going to try to get to another tutorial here, and we will go on from there. But again, this is 1920 by 1080. Standard high definition footage. We started out in quarter. You can move that down to full frame and all that stuff. So this is the basics of setting up a composition. My name's Cherokee at Tutorial Grid, and we hope to see you guys again on the next tutorial.